And Henry Frankenstein, he goes over to the body, and we see the hand, just this hand, which has just been in a state of rigor mortis, just start moving slightly. Chad, he goes, "It's alive! It's alive!" And then Victor's like, "In the name of God! In the name of God!" No, I know what it means to be God. And then it cuts. It's like, holy shit. Okay. Hello, I just wanted to thank you for clicking on my video, and I wanted to let you know not only do I create content in my YouTube channel here, Class in a Glass, but I'm also on Twitch where I play single-player games, multiplayer games. I do movie reviews, cartoon reviews, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Also, it would be a big help if you can check out my Patreon, where you can gain access to audio commentaries, reactions, and the ability to submit questions for my podcasts and videocasts. And all that content can be found in the links below. In the meantime, enjoy the video. We're going to go ahead and get to the main portion of the show. I am doing a scene by scene breakdown, chat, to 1931's Frankenstein. All right, but before we go ahead and get nitty-gritty details, chat, before I, reveal some interesting facts about this film, I want to hear from you, chat. How many of you have seen 1931's Frankenstein, directed by James Whale, starring Boris Karloff, chat? Very, very curious. What's so special about Sonic 91? It's the original Sonic. It's the first Sonic game. Alex Bernal, I have. I seen it. I have. No name Mooney with a $5 donation. Oh, I forgot to change that. Oop. I forgot to change that one. I'll have to get in there and change that. Oh, that was like the longer version. Thank you, no one. Actually, just a fan. I have a fan. I have a fan above me. I actually have a fan outside, be able to move in. So I'll be able to do that. So I might have to do that. Glee, thank you for the 100 biddies. Subathon tomorrow. Yep. Subathon tomorrow. I'm very excited. Very excited about it. Thank you. Thank you for all your incredible support. Thank you so much, anyone. And thank you, Glee, for the 100 biddies. Or as you play Sonic Genesis. Oh, I mean, that's the same thing. As far as I know. I think Sonic Genesis is Sonic 1. So that's what I'll be playing, because it was on the Genesis. Let's see. C-Map, I've seen it. I love it. Rockbirdie, I wish it was during the workday, so I would not pay attention to it. I'm sorry. I have to do it in the morning. Well, you're not in the morning, excuse me. Later in the evening, late afternoon, because the guys are going to come over and repair my ACs. Hopefully, they repair it by the time I start, because it's going to get awkward. It's going to get a little awkward with me walking around in full Sonic suit regalia, chat, but we'll see. Bat Boy, I've seen most of these classic Universal Monster movies. I place the Universal Monster franchise up there with Scooby-Doo and Looney Tunes for my all-time favorite series. Nice. And that was the garbage part of the horrible slowdown and awful music. Yep, that's the one it has to be. That's the one it has to be, Craig, man. I'm sorry, but that's all I can. That game is, like, not available on a lot of systems, which is, I was like, it's not available on Xbox One, and it's not available on the PlayStation Network. It's like, I had to buy it via Steam. Ty, thank you so much, Timothy. Did you get a screener for Venom? No, I don't get screeners. I'm not a part of any critics association like Martin and Corey are. So I'll have to go see it. And pay my money. You'll have to support me so I can see Venom. So that's what we'll be doing. But a lot of you guys seem to have seen this movie, or at least very much be aware of it. I mean, Frankenstein, much like Dracula, much like The Invisible Man, much like The Wolfman, Creature in the Black Lagoon, these are iconic films. They are part of the pop culture zeitgeist. They're influential, chat. They influence multiple other adaptations of these famous monsters, and Frankenstein is that as well. I mean, just the design, chat. I mean, let me show you this picture right here. The design of Boris Karloff in the makeup as the monster from the movie. It's iconic. So iconic that even Universal said, okay, we have something here, and so we're just going to fucking copyright this design, chat. The flap top head, the bolts in the neck, everything, that very gaunt face. We're copyrighting that shit. And to this day, like, people cannot use that version. You can make a Frankenstein movie, but you can't use our Boris Karloff version. I mean, this movie is incredibly famous, chat. It was a huge financial success for its time, and they capitalized on the success of Dracula in the same year. They knew what they had with Dracula, Bela Lugosi in the role, and it's like, okay, we can really define what horror is in the 30s and 40s and 50s, and they did so, chat, and they did that with Frankenstein. made multiple sequels to that film. Then, like the next year they did The Mummy with Boris Karloff. And then after that, Chad, they did Bride of Frankenstein, various other adaptations and spin-offs of The Wolfman, Creature from Black Lagoon. I mean, all these things that Universal produced had such an impact on film and especially horror, Chad. And Boris Karloff's performance as the monster, as the Frankenstein monster, is iconic. And it's interesting compared to, I actually like it that these two movies came out like within the same year, because Count Dracula and Frankenstein, the monster in Frankenstein, are so different than each other. Like Dracula he chooses to be evil. He chooses to indulge in his affliction, his lust for blood, his lust for death, enslaving others for his own benefit. Where Frankenstein, he's a product of the monster is a product of madness, of a doctor who is so consumed by his own ego and narcissism and amorality to an extent that he doesn't realize what he's actually doing. And, he circumvents the morality of science to create something that doesn't even understand what it truly is. And there is something very tragic about the monster in Frankenstein. It's like it does horrible things, but it doesn't know exactly what it's doing. And it's a product of its environment, where it's abused and it's confused, and and there are moments, what I really like about this movie, especially when compared to Dracula, like there are moments where you really care about him. You really care about the monster. You almost, even though he does these horrible things, because he has the mind of a child, which is so sad. And children, children don't have this innate morality. Morality, you're not born with morality, you're taught morality. And he doesn't understand certain things. And so when we get to certain scenes, when he kills people, when he kills children, it's like if only someone was there to guide him. But because you have someone like Dr. Henry Frankenstein in this film, played to great effect by Colin Clive, chat, you already know that the monster he never had a chance. He never had a chance, despite, Henry wanting to, Henry was so obsessed with whether or not he could. He never questioned whether he should. He was blinded by ego. It's a very interesting thing. It's definitely, I think, what the film, probably the Universal monster movie that has the most depth. I mean, you can make an argument with The Wolfman. You can make a stronger one, but I really do think like this is a very important film. And the sequel, Bride of Frankenstein, which goes into this creature like wanting a mate, wanting to be loved, and how even it realizes that he can't have that either. It's so sad, and I really like that. It's not Victor, no. They changed the name to make it more American. There's a Victor in the movie who is the best friend of Dr. Henry Frankenstein, but Henry is the name of Dr. Frankenstein in this. And this is because the time, and, for decades, Hollywood wanted to, Americanize, and, have these very Anglo-Saxon sounding names. And so that's why they're like, well, Victor sounds too foreign for American English audience. So as the main character, as our hero, if you will. So let's give him the name Henry. So that's what they did. But but Victor is the name of his best friend. So they did keep some elements. And this is a very loose adaptation of Mary Shelley's novel, chat. There was another adaptation of Frankenstein, I think in the 19-teens, which I saw. It's very fucking rough. It's super short. It's about 22 minutes. This movie's about like an hour and 10 minutes. And I saw that like in a film like appreciation club or something. It was basically a film club, and where we watched this original movie, and but beforehand we watched it like the original Frankenstein or Prometheus Frankenstein, whatever you want to call it. And it was interesting. Definitely like some, cool designs and things, especially for the 19-teens, what they were working with. Like early. Of course, it was a silent film, but very early horror, what we would eventually see, expanded upon in the late 1920s and in the 30s. But this, I think, for a lot of people, is the iconic version of the monster and of many of these characters. It's also what made Boris Karloff a star. It's funny because before he did this film, he had 80 other film and TV credits. Like film credits. And he worked on sets. He was digging ditches for outside shots. I mean, he was just trying to survive and provide for himself and his family. for many years before he actually hit it with Frankenstein, starring the various sequels in the 30s and 40s and multiple other, roles, and then later voiceover roles, and famously, as the narrator in The Grinch and also the voice of the Grinch. So, yeah, no, this is what kind of brought him to stardom. I think originally, Universal wanted to cast Lon Chaney Sr. Oh no, I'm sorry. I think that was for Dracula. So I wanted to mention this yesterday, chat. But Lon Chaney Sr. was the studio's first choice to play Dracula, but he had passed away and eventually went to Bela Lugosi. So he renegotiated. He's like, okay, well, you could be Dracula, but we're gonna pay you shit. But I would not have been surprised if Lon Chaney Sr. would have played Frankenstein's monster. And funny enough, I think Lon Chaney Jr. Might have played the role, or he was in a position to possibly play the role. I think when they eventually got to Frankenstein, or the Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, Lon Chaney Jr. was supposed to play both roles, but because the idea that it was so taxing because all the makeup and stuff, they gave the role to Bela Lugosi. So even though I think Boris Karloff was known for playing Frankenstein's monster more than any of the other actors playing like their various, monsters, like, Bela Lugosi's Dracula, or, Lon Chaney Jr.'s the Wolfman. I think he played Frankenstein's monster the most out of any of them. So it's pretty cool. But and it was a huge commercial success. Had a budget of about $262,000. Now I think when initially released, it made like $1.4 million, which is very good. And then I think by like the 1950s, because they did multiple re-releases for like a decade or nearly 2 decades, or I think in the 40s, they made like an additional like 11 million, bringing it to like 12 million. So it was a huge financial success for Universal at the time, chap. I mean, 12 million is like, that's nothing, but back in the day, that's a lot of money. That's a shit ton of money, chap. And a few other interesting points, chap. This is directed by James Whale, who was an openly gay director in the 1930s and 40s, which is kind of crazy. When you think about like that time period, it's like you couldn't let anyone know you're gay, but he was like, yeah, I'm gay. It was known, and he was talented. Not only did he do this film, chap, and he did other Universal movies and projects, not just Universal monster movies, though he's probably best known for that. Of course, he did 1931's Frankenstein. In 1933, he did The Invisible Man with Jesus Christ. I'm blanking on the name. God damn it. The actor who played Invisible Man, chat. Jesus. I got Claude Rains. Thank you, C-Man. Claude Rains. Yes, did Claude Rains. And then 1935, he came back and did the sequel to Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein. So, yeah, some of the best, in my opinion, some of the best Universal monster movies. Because I think Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and Son of Frankenstein, I was like, that movie's pretty goddamn good, too. That's a pretty goddamn good horror trilogy, in my opinion. He was an openly gay filmmaker. And then, of course, famously, you had Colin Clive play Dr. Henry Frankenstein, who suffered from alcoholism his whole life. So if you notice, like in this movie and also in Bride of Frankenstein, he's sitting down a lot, and that's because he was so fucking drunk and so hungover most of the time that he would fall over, he'd tip over. And you constantly see him like slouching so often in this film, and they actually have to prop him up in order for him to deliver his lines. I think he like died in 1937, and it was related to like alcohol abuse. Yeah, he died, he was 37 years old, died in 1937, chat. Only 2 years after Bride of Frankenstein. Yep, he suffered from severe chronic alcoholism and complications from tuberculosis. So he died very, very young. But you'll notice in this movie, he's constantly sitting down. He looks haggard. And actually, I mean, as this performance, as this doctor who is just so obsessed and looks malnourished, that's because Colin Clive was actually malnourished because of his drinking problem. And a lot of these actors, chat, had alcoholism and drug addiction. Famously, Bela Lugosi, chat, which led to his death in the 50s. Lon Chaney Jr. was they said he was a heavy drinker, but he was clearly an alcoholic, and he died of alcoholic complications, conditions later on in his life. But for whatever reason, like the only person that seemingly did not drink was Boris Karloff, and I think he lived fairly long. I think he lived till he was like 81 years old. So it's kind of nuts. But yeah, a lot of these guys, and that's the thing though, in the 30s and 40s and the 50s, like all these fucking actors, like they drank and smoked so heavily. And famously, I mentioned this before, chap, with Casablanca, or excuse me, with Humphrey Bogart, famously played, in the role of Rick in Casablanca, and African Queen, and Treasure of the Sierra Madre, so many great roles. But he was a heavy drinker and he was a heavy smoker to the point where they had to remove his fucking esophagus. And before he died, Chad, he was like 80 pounds. It's like, don't fucking do it. It's like sad. Like all these actors did it. I don't know if it was just that was what you were expected of the time, or because of the stress of the job or whatever. They indulge in all these things. So yeah, it's sad. It's sad especially for someone like Colin Clive. And also apparently he also drank because he had like a bad leg that because of like an injury in his youth, he was constantly worried about. Like he suffered from some type of anxiety too. He was constantly worried about his leg having to be amputated, and that's what also made him drink. So guy had a rough life. And a rough life, chap. But now we're going to go ahead and get started, chap. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty details of this movie. And the movie opens up, chat, with Edward Van Sloan, okay, who played Dr. Van Helsing in Dracula. He's back, chat. And I'm thinking, oh, fucking shit, it's Van Helsing. Is he in Frankenstein? It's not. He plays a different character, chat. He plays Dr. Waldman. But he also plays the character of the announcer. And he's basically telling everybody, like, all right, everybody, fucking buckle up and hold on to your butts. You're going to see some scary fucking shit. All right? I'm going to tell you right now, but just letting you know, it's a work of fiction. It's a work of fiction. We're all here to have fun. All right? Yeah, you're going to see some science run amok. You're going to see some crazy shit. You're going to see some disturbing shit, but it's a movie. It's a movie. Take it easy. And they had to do this shit because like people were like freaking out. When they first saw this film, they were so horrified by the monster and things. It's so funny when we see this movie. It's like, really? But they were. People didn't see stuff like this. Like Dracula and the Wolfman and Frankenstein's monster and all these characters. They're such a big part of our own pop culture zeitgeist at this point because they've been around for 80 years now. Going soon to be 90 years, chat. That we're just like, oh yeah, of course, we're all used to these. These people were not. This is the first exposure to something like this type of medium. The horror genre, this was like the horror genre existed in sound films, but it was not what it was turning into. It wasn't like that. It was like these little short things, and it didn't have like this dialogue and like the audio, and that freaked people the fuck out. Like this was the first types of horror films that anyone had ever seen. Especially for a national audience and international audience. That's why these were such a big deal of the time, and why they were so sensational supernatural thrillers and all that shit. So you have goddamn Edward Van Sloan saying, chill out, it's a movie. It's a movie. Don't worry about it. But then, chat, we transition from good old Dr. Van Helsing, chat, Dr. Waldman, Edward Van Sloan, and we're now at a burial, chat. This fucking family they're burying, like, their relative or something, their dad, their son, who fucking knows? The priest is like, yeah, he led a life like we all do. Tried his fucking best, but now he's in a box and now he's dead, so let's go eat the spread and back, and the Lord is with you, all that, my Father, good. All right, let's go, everybody. And so they go back, chat. They're all fucking crying, all the mourners, and we see this very fat, a grave digger. And I'm thinking, is he going to eat the guy? Because he looked very hungry, chat. But he fucking gets his pipe going. He fucking takes his jacket off, and he makes sure to bury that fucking box shit. He buries that box. But over yonder, we see two individuals just fucking looking, chat. And we see Dr. Henry Frankenstein and his assistant Fritz, chat. Not Igor. Or Igor. Igor does not appear in the Universal Monster movies until 1939's Son of Frankenstein, chat, where he assists the son of Henry Frankenstein try to, basically restore his family's name. Because, the Frankenstein, the name has been tarnished throughout the medical community due to his experiments and things. And Igor seemingly is just this innocent man who's just trying to help him. But he's not. He's not, Chad. He's actually trying to get vengeance on the people of the village who tried to kill him years ago, sentenced him to death, and made him get his hump in his horrible fucking neck. But that's not Igor. This is Fritz, Chad. This is Fritz. Played by Dwight Frye, who played Renfield in 1931 Dracula, chat, same exact year. And Fritz is like, I want to fuck that body. You can tell when you look at Fritz that he's a necrophiliac, because he's like, I want to fuck that thing. And, fucking Henry's like, get down, don't look, wait. And so eventually the fat grave digger, he's like, all right, I'm done. Out of sight, out of mind, we're fucking good. And so he waddles away. And then Fritz and Dr. Henry Frankenstein, they go down there and they start fucking digging up the body and things. It takes them a while though, Chad. I mean, goddamn, no, it's fresh earth, but still, takes them a while. And they get up and they start to hoist the coffin up. And Dr. Henry Frankenstein, you can tell this guy. I will say, Colin Clive's alcoholism, I think, contributed to his performance because he's just like, yes, this body, it is not dead. It is merely sleeping, waiting to wake up, to be restored with life once again. And Fritz is like, okay. So they dig up the fucking coffin, put on a cart, and they head out, chat. And they're moseying on, down the way, down this trail. And they come upon a hanged man, Chad. Someone got hanged. Someone was hanged by the fucking neck. There was a noose around him. And Dr. Henry Frankenstein, that looks like a nice cadaver. Fritz, here's a knife. Go up there and get me that body. And Fritz is like, I'm scared of heights and my hump itches and it's very sore. And Henry Frankenstein's like, I will rub your hump when we get back to the castle. Now give me that body. And so Fritz, he climbs up, Chad. He climbs up there, gets the body and fucking falls down. And, but then, Fritz, he goes down. He's like, is it a good body, my master? And he's like, the neck's fucking broken. The brain is useless. Fritz, we need like a really good brain. Where could I find a good brain? And we transition, chat. We transition to, I guess, this university that is nearby, in this nearby town, chat, where Henry Frankenstein grew up. And we have Dr. Waldman, chat, or Van Helsing, or, Edward Van Sloan. And he's basically giving a lecture while, giving an autopsy. He's like, so this is a fucking human body. Also, I want to show these two brains. This is a really good brain. It's like the best brain we've ever gotten. See the lobes and shit? How the lobes look all really good? And you got over here, you got a bad brain. It's a smooth brain. This guy was dumb as fuck. He was a murderer. He was a rapist. Child murder, not good. Bad brain. All right, so class dismissed. You know what makes a brain good. All right, goodbye, everybody. And so all the kids are leaving and chat, and they're all like, they're all like playing grab ass and shit, but they leave. Fritz, meanwhile, he's been watching the lecture, not understanding a fucking thing that was said because he's an idiot, but he sneaks in through a window. And he, he climbs down, chat, to the lecture hall, and he sees, he has to read, on his hand, good brain. And it says good brain. He takes good brain, but then, he hears, someone laughing outside, and it fucking scares the shit out of him, and he drops the fucking brain. He's like, oh, God! Oh, Jesus! Oh, fuck. I'm gonna take this one instead. And he takes the bad brain, chat. You shouldn't be taking the bad brain. That's not gonna be good because that guy was like a murderer and a rapist and a child murderer but he did other bad things. We can assume he did other bad things too, chat. I mean, if you're already a murderer, it's like, all right, it just goes down. Keeps going, getting worse, chat. Serious Bach, you're salutations. You hope you live long and prospering. Yes. So after that, we transition to the Baron Frankenstein's residence, chat, where we have Elizabeth, Henry Frankenstein's fiance, but he has not talked to her in quite some time, in a few weeks, because he's been obsessed with his research, chat. But they are betrothed. But what's going on? She gets this letter, and she wants to consult with Henry Frankenstein's best friend, Victor, which I imagine Victor, they were like, okay, to honor Mary Shelley's original novel, we'll put in the Victor name, but we're not going to give that to the main character because, well, that sounds too foreign. And so they gave it to this guy. And she's reading this letter, and basically she says, basically Henry Frankenstein's telling her, listen, I love you and stuff, it's cool, but I'm obsessed with my research right now. I'm making a profound discovery that will shock men and women around the world, and the scientific community will have to embrace it, and I will be famous. I will be so fucking famous. It's going to be great. Elizabeth, I'll see you in a bit, okay? I've just been very busy. I've been very busy at my secret laboratory castle. And she's telling Victor about this. It's like, I'm concerned. I'm really concerned about this. And Victor's like, yeah, that's great. Do you want to fuck? Victor in this scene, very inappropriate because he's constantly just lusting after Elizabeth the entire time. It's like, Victor, take it easy. All right? She's already fucking betrothed. Her fiance, yes, their fiance is fucking nuts and will absolutely destroy the Frankenstein name. There's no question. But don't be doing this now. And he's like, I'm sorry, I'm lusting after you. And even before they go, he's like, he takes her hand, and you could tell she's like, okay, you're holding my hand way too long. He's like, yes, I know. And he kisses and he leaves. And basically promises, don't worry, we're gonna go check on Henry, and I'm sure he's fine. I mean, I did see him walking in the woods randomly one day, and I was asking him about his research, and he told me to fuck off. I'm not gonna show my research to anyone until I'm ready. Well, that was concerning, but I'm sure he's fine. We'll go check on him at this point. At this point, and that's the thing. We'll go ahead and, first things first, let's talk to his professor, his Dr. Waldman, who we saw earlier, Chad. And so they go see Dr. Waldman, and Dr. Waldman's like, oh, yeah, I'm very concerned about Henry. I mean, he was talking about reanimating dead flesh, using brains and acquiring bodies, and he had insisted on getting more and more bodies, and we couldn't provide these bodies. And based on what he was telling us, he was unconcerned the ways in which we obtain them. He wanted fresh bodies, ones that were living not too long ago. And we were like, we can't do this. And he basically told us to go fuck ourselves. And he's been working in his private laboratory for weeks now with that hunchback freak. And they're like, well, that's not good. He's like, I know. It's like, we should go see him. Yes, I agree. And so they all fucking go to his evil Castle Frankenstein chat. Meanwhile, we cut to Dr. Frankenstein and Fritz. And I will say this, the sets for a lot of these movies, but especially for Frankenstein, Chad and Bride of Frankenstein, are amazing. The laboratory, all the levers and the spinning dials and the Spectre, electrical globes and stuff. It looks so cool. Lakota, welcome to the stream. Hope you're doing very well. Science stuff. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. No, good to see you, Lakota. Hope you're doing very well. But I love the set design for the Frankenstein's laboratory / castle, and the use of light and shadows is fantastic throughout a lot of the Universal monster movies. But you really notice it in this film. You can even tell it's like okay, we had Dracula, but we can make something even better than Dracula. I think they did so with Frankenstein. But at this point, they're testing everything, making sure everything's like ready to go because they are going to bring back this body. So the brain's already in there, Chad. The bad brain's in there. Frankenstein, or Dr. Frankenstein, he's showing Fritz. His Fritz freaks out because he sees the hand, the bare hand. He's like, oh! He's like, don't worry. It's nothing. Look, not any bleeding, just a normal hand, just a little stitching. And soon these wounds will be healed, and this man shall walk again, Fritz. And he's like, okay. He's like, let me show you the piece de la resistance. And we see the top. He removes like this shawl that's covering the monster's head. And we see the flat top. We see the bolts and things. Like he's merely resting right now. But once we lift him up in the sky and we take the power of God from God himself, I will give birth to life, Fritz. And Fritz is like, can I fuck it, though, afterwards? No, you can't fuck it, Fritz. Jesus Christ. Can I torture it with fire? Maybe. We'll see. And so they're testing all this stuff, and they got all the gyros spinning and everything, and it's a big old thunderstorm, Chad, big old lightning thunderstorm of brewing. That's exactly what they need. But then they hear this knock on the goddamn door, Chad. They hear this knock on the goddamn door, and, Henry, they hear the shouting outside, and Dr. Frankenstein, he looks down from the window and he sees Elizabeth, he sees Dr. Waldman, and he sees Victor, and they're like, can you let us in? He's like, no, go get out of here. I'm too busy with my experiments. I'm too busy. And he's like, leave. I'll talk to you later. But they keep fucking banging the door. And he's like, Fritz, tell him to fucking go. And so Fritz waddles down with his little cane. He goes to the door, and he says, you can't come in. We're busy trying to bring back a body to life. And they're like, what the fuck? And he's like, I can't help you. And he shuts the window and he goes back up, and Dr. Frankenstein's like, did you get rid of him? He's like, no, they insist on staying. He's like, God damn it. And so Henry, he goes down there and he opens the door, and they're like, what are you doing? You got to come back home. He's like, okay, listen, I'll let you stay here, okay? But you're not going to fucking touch anything. You're not going to touch a single goddamn thing. So come up with me. I want to show you something amazing, something special. And so they ascend this. By the way, the set to the staircase that ascends to the laboratory, great. And you see the little dungeon there too. But they go up the staircase, and they're observing the laboratory. Elizabeth is obviously anxious and scared. She's like, Henry, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? It's because the medical community didn't believe in me. They said I went too far, but I did not go far enough. I knew what I needed to do, but they were cowards. And Dr. Waldman just goes over to the body, and Fritz is like, don't look at that. Don't look at it. And Fritz is like, get away from there. And Waldman's like, what are you doing? What is this? And he's like, I shall show you. You always said you never believed in me. You never believed in what I could do. You said what I wanted to do was impossible. I will show you the impossible is possible for a man like me. And he's like, Fritz, start pulling the levers and start spinning the gyros and activate the Spectre electric balls, okay? We're going to do some crazy shit. And so they start pulling up the body, Chad, as it is ascending to the heavens, and all this lightning starts hitting it. They're pushing all buttons and all spinning all the gyros and latches and things, and the body's just being imbued with electricity, Chad, the lifeblood, the light that is needed to ascend to a higher being. And eventually, Dr. Edward, that's enough, Fritz, that's enough. Now bring the body down. And it's all smoking and stuff, and there's like, mist coming off it, just the heat's radiating off of it. And they lower the body down, Chad, they lower the body down. And Henry Frankenstein, he goes over to the body, and we see the hand, just this hand, which has just been in a state of rigor mortis, just start moving slightly. Chad, he goes, it's alive! It's alive! And then Victor's like, in the name of God! In the name of God! No, I know what it means to be God! And then it cuts. It's like, holy shit, okay. All right, fair enough. After him just fucking freaking out, and then that is like the most iconic line from the movie. It's alive. It's alive. Of course, everyone knows it. As soon as you say that, you're like, Frankenstein. Of course. We then transition to Granddad Baron, Chad, or Henry's papa. He's the Baron of the town. He's like, I don't like all this science bullshit. Okay. I want grandchildren. Elizabeth, I want you to make grandchildren with my son. He's fucking weird, but I want some grandbabies, all right? I don't understand this science speak. And Victor's there, too. He's like, I know you're horny, Victor, but no. Well, what's going on with my son? He's like, he's obsessed with these experiments. He's refusing to come back. He's like, well, I'm going to go see him. Because we got a wedding to plan. And then the Meisterburger walks in, Chad, from a Santa Claus is coming to town. And he's upset. Because he's like, we're planning this big fucking wedding, but now I'm hearing that Henry Frankenstein's not even here. He's like, what the hell is going on? And the Baron's like, shut the fuck up. I pay your goddamn salary. Get out of my house. And he's like, we need him in order to do this celebration. He's like, I don't care, and good riddance to you. And so the Burgermeister, he leaves chat. And Baron's like, I don't give a shit. I don't understand the science speak or raising the dead, and I don't care. I'm gonna go see my son. That's what we're doing. We then cut back to Castle Frankenstein, chat, where we see Colin Clive just like, looks like he's on a bender. Or looks like he has a very bad hangover. And he's just fucking smoking. He's just drinking. He's like, this is perfect. This is so successful for me. This is great. And he sees Dr. Waldman, who's just sitting there looking at him. And he's like, why are you looking at me like that? Because I finally proved you wrong. I did what needed to be done. I have taken God's ability to create life. This is something special, Professor. You're witnessing something that has never been done before. And you contributed to it. You should be happy. You contributed. The brain that powers my creature right now, that gives him thoughts, is the one taken from your own university. And Waldman's like, yeah, about that. The brain that was taken from my university was an abnormal brain. The brain of a murderer, the brain of a criminal. And Henry's like, oh. It's the first time where he's like, oh. Like, it's the one moment where he starts to actually doubt himself. And he's like, oh, well, I mean, it's just a bit of tissue. It's like, it's more than a bit of fucking tissue. Like, even to this day, Chad, we haven't, fully understood what every single part of the brain does. It's a very, very, very complicated organ. And he's like, it's just a bit of tissue that's been reanimated. I'm sure it's fine. Pay no mind. Out of sight, out of mind. I'll teach him what's what. No ABCs, 1, 2, 3. We fucking got it, Chad. No problem at all. But then after that, Chad, we cut because we hear the steps. We hear just this stepping, like somebody's calling up the stairs, Chad. And what's interesting, Boris Karloff, because he wore such heavy makeup, and he apparently lost a significant amount of weight playing the character of the monster. But each shoe weighed 11 pounds. It gave him, because you see that they're platform shoes, so they gave him a lot more height. But they were 11 pounds to make sure that his walk had this. It was very heavy. Like, he was very heavy footed, Chad. Like, he was just a newborn trying to walk again, because now all of his muscles aren't working. He's like a hodgepodge of different fucking body parts, Chad. Like, yeah, this is fucking freaky. This is body horror of the 1930s. And Dr. Frankenstein's like, oh, pull the curtains back. Pull the curtains back. He's not used to light. I've kept him in darkness the whole time, which I'm sure that's healthy for him. But pull the lights up, put out all the lights and stuff. And eventually, Frank, this is very interesting how they revealed him. It also shows just how backwards the monster is thinking. He doesn't even know what he's doing. But he enters the room backwards. He opens the door backwards, and he, like, comes inside, and he turns around, and he just has this expression like this. Like, he's barely even looking. Like, you know, there's, like, seemingly no life behind his eyes. Like, no, it's just very disturbing. And Henry approaches him, and he's like, here, come to me. And he's like, he doesn't even say anything. He just comes to him, just those little big clod stoppers, you know, those feet chat. And, you know, and Henry starts giving him orders like, sit down in the chair, sit down. And he's like, and he sits down. Waldman's just like, this is not good. This is not good. And he's like, see, look, I tell you, and look what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to expose him to light. I'm going to give him a little treat. And so he's like, open the curtains, because they have the hole in the wall, the moonroof up there, chat. You know, where they put up the gurney where the monster originally was on, and they open that, and Frankenstein sees that, and this is such a beautiful scene where he gets up and he's like, huh. Like he's reaching for it, chat, like that warmth on his face, that glowing light, and then Henry's like, now close it, and he closes it, and he's like, huh. And he just has that dead eye expression again at that point. It's like it's so sad. It's so sad. But I just love it. Like again, the creature. I think the monster and the Wolfman. Again, like I said, are these two creatures that you have such empathy for, because the Wolfman can't control himself. You know, Lon Chaney Jr.'s character of Larry Talbot, like he is beholden to this. He can't do anything about it. It's like a sickness, and he's so afraid of it. But the monster doesn't even know what it is. He has no conception of what it is, and he doesn't know that he never had a chance. So it's so sad. But eventually, you know, Waldman's like, we got to talk about this. This goes against everything that we know about modern science. And, you know, Henry's like, Waldman, you complain too much. You're worried too much. Don't worry about it. And then Fritz is like, the monster. He's like already calling it a monster and shit. It's loose. He has his fucking torch. He goes, here it is. He starts like throwing the torch. Yeah, the monster's like, and like, Fritz, stop fucking doing that. What are you doing? And the monster just starts freaking the fuck out, because Fritz has just been abusing it this entire time. And it starts like fucking backhands Henry, backhands Waldman, and it's just like, you know, stumbling around. And it's going downstairs. At this point, it's like, I just wants to fucking leave. And starts banging on the goddamn door. And they're like, okay. We got okay, what are we gonna do about this? Jesus. We have to drug him. And they drug him, and they put him back into they have a dungeon area, and they have him right there, and they tie him up. And they put like a rope on him to like corral him in there. But Fritz just stays down there, and Fritz is a little fucking shit. Because Fritz, you fool. Because he just wants to torture it. That's all he does. Like, he has the torch, because I understand what Fritz is. He's been mocked. He's been belittled. He's been looked down upon because of his deformity of his hump, and probably for his own, you know, that's exacerbated like his own mental illness and his sociopathic tendencies. And so he's just enjoying. He's basking in the idea that I can just torture something that he perceives as lesser than him. And so he's constantly just like throwing the torch at, which also inherently creates Frankenstein's, the monster's fear of fire. And he's just torturing this fucking thing like for hours and hours and hours until, you know, it's the monster snaps. The monster snaps, and we cut back to Dr. Henry Frankenstein and Waldman, who are talking about this. And Henry's like, okay, so maybe the bad brain thing wasn't great, but we can work on this. And they hear this scream. Ah! And they run down to the dungeon where we see that Frankenstein has hung Fritz, chat. He hanged him and killed him. He's killed him. And they're like, oh my God, this is not good. And they shut the fucking dungeon doors. They both run out. And at this point, Walden's like, we need to put this thing down. It's already killed someone. It doesn't know what the fuck is going on. All it knows is pain and misery and darkness. All right? Okay? We have to do this, but we have to sedate it first. We have to trick it. And so eventually they open up the door. No, not at that point. But they open up the door, and they're kind of like leading out, like Waldman's like staying behind him, and Frankenstein's like, come to me. Waldman comes up behind him with the fucking, you know, trank. But, you know, the monster respect goes, bah, backhounds Waldman. And the monster just starts choking the shit out of Henry, chat, trying to kill him, until Waldman comes up behind him and sticks him with the thing and finally sedates him. He's like, and he falls down just out, and eventually they drag him back into the dungeon. Meanwhile, the Baron, chat, he's there, Granddad Baron, Papa Baron, he's there with Elizabeth, and he's like, this place fucking sucks. It looks like it's filled with poor people. And he's like banging on the door. He's like, Henry, it's your dad. Let me in, goddammit. Let me in. And Waldman, he goes to the door, he opens it. And he's like, Dr. Waldman, I'm here to speak to my son. He's like, your son is resting upstairs right now. He's like, what's the matter with you? What's going on? There's like a torch in the ground. You're going to burn this place down. Where are the poor's going to live then, huh? They ain't living with me. Where's my son? And so they go up to the stairs, chat, where Henry Frankenstein, he is just exhausted. He's fatigued. He's suffering from intense anxiety. And now he has this profound guilt about what he did. He birthed this creature without thinking about the consequences. A man is dead. Maybe a man that deserved it, but a man is dead. And he created a monster. In his mind, he created a monster. And he sees his father and he sees Elizabeth. And he collapses. And eventually, they take him home. Dr. Waldman says, and they take him home and where he'll rest and recover. Waldman says, listen, I have to put this thing down. I'm gonna vivisect it. I'm gonna dissect it. I'm gonna kill it. I'm gonna dissect it, and that'll be it. Okay, but that's what I'm gonna do. You guys do what you need to do. Okay, but I'm gonna go kill the monster. All right. And they're like, okay, cool. Okay, Dr. Waldman, sounds good. And so Henry, he's recovering in his bed, and Elizabeth, he's talking, with her, and he's like, Elizabeth, I'm sorry, I've been a fool this entire time. My ego, my obsession has gotten in front of my love for you, love of my family, love of my father. I realized what I did was wrong. And I want to be with you. That's what I truly want to do. And I want to marry you as soon as possible. She's like, as soon as possible. He goes, yes. She's like, well, let's fucking do it tomorrow, baby. And so that's what they do, chat. They're all hanging out. They're fucking smoking and shit, having a great time. Again, Colin Clive, he's always sitting down. He always has a fucking drink in his hand. Always shakily swallowing it too. Eventually cut back to Castle Frankenstein, chat, where Waldman has put the monster on a gurney, and he's taking specific notes about how he's gonna kill it, and then he's gonna euthanize it basically, and then dissect it. And for proper study. But the sedative has worn off on the monster because, he didn't put enough in him apparently. And so he's aware of what Waldman's doing. And he just fucking Waldman's looking at he's taking his vitals basically, putting his head to his chest, trying to hear his heartbeat. And Frankenstein just grabs him and strangles the fuck out of Waldman and kills him, chat. So Waldman is no more. And the monster escapes from the castle. Eventually we cut back to the day of the wedding. That's the day of the wedding. And so Baron Frankenstein, he's like, here are these two fucking corsages that your mother and I wore. Orange blossoms. And we said that we couldn't wait until our children were... It's like, are you okay, sir? He's been doing a lot of drinking. But we can't wait until our children can have children. So here you go. There's one for you. There's one for the best man, Victor. Do not fuck the bride. Don't fuck her. And he's like, and then you will take the crown of posies and put it on her head. Let's drink, everybody. He's like, has this 100-year-old wine or something. This has been in my family for generations. Don't give this to the staff, the maids and the valets and the waiters and all of them. It's wasted on them. Give them champagne, cheap champagne. Who cares? Drink up. All right, enough drinking. Go out and serve my people. And we cut this. I could tell they spent more money on this movie than they did Dracula because there's a shit ton of more extras and there's a lot of footage outside. A lot of where the whole fucking town is celebrating, the wedding of Henry Frankenstein and Elizabeth. And the Baron, he goes outside with the Burgermeister, and he's like, hello, everyone. Hello, paws of my village. Great to have you here. Sons, he getting hitched to Elizabeth. It's great. It's great. I actually like the dad because he's the little bit of comedy we get in this film. It's a pretty fucking dark movie, so I do like him. And he's like, so do what I do, drink and be merry and have fun. Yay! Good for you, you poor fucks. And he goes back inside his house, chat. But meanwhile, we cut to the monster. And he is traveling through the forest, chat. He's just running around. He comes upon a farmstead, chat. And we see this father and this little girl. And the little girl asks the dad if he can stay to play with her. And he's like, he will, but he just has to finish his chores. And he'll come back, and they can go to the wedding of Henry Frankenstein and Elizabeth. She's like, yay, Daddy, that sounds great. And so she's playing with her little kitty cat, chat. And the monster comes upon the girl. Except she doesn't scream when she sees him. She's not afraid. And the monster has never encountered something like this. Everyone who's ever seen him has screamed at him or been in fear of him. And the little girl's like, what's your name? Who are you? And he's like, huh. Like, he can't. All he does is he just kind of has this moan. And he just gestures with his hands like this. And she's like, do you want to play with flowers? And she like takes his hand. It's one of the best scenes in the movie, chat. One of the best scenes in the movie, and she takes his hand, and this is interesting because apparently this was so good. This is a great story where they had the little girl, the actress, and they were worried how she would react to Boris Karloff in full makeup, and so they wanted to. Basically, they wanted to show her Boris Karloff first, but there was like a timing conflict, and so because he already had the makeup on. And she insisted on seeing him anyway. And she went to him and like in full makeup and everything. And she took his hand and she basically said, I'm very excited to work with you. And they walked the entire way to the set to do this scene. And that's what it was. So she wasn't scared at all. It is adorable, chat. I mean, what happens in the scene is horrifying, but that she was totally okay and not scared at all because she knew it was just a very nice man in makeup. And it's to me, it's just really sweet and adorable. And they walked all the way to set to do it. And they just talked to each other the entire time and just got used to each other for this. What I think is one of the best scenes, if not the best scene in the movie, one of the best scenes in the movie. I think we can make an argument this is the best one. But she's basically saying, you want to play flowers? And she like takes a flower and it's like, look, they float. And she like takes the stem off and she throws it in the water. She's like they live next to a lake, and she gives him a flower and he does the same thing. And she keeps doing it until they run out of flowers. She's like, oh, flowers are gone. He's like, and he grabs her. He picks her up. She's like, what are you doing? No, what are you doing? Stop it. Stop it. And rah, he throws her in the fucking water, chat. And she's trying to get out of the water. She's trying to get to the shore because she could swim, but he just hits her and just holds her underwater until she dies. Kills her. He doesn't understand what he does. He doesn't get what he just did. But he fucking realizes that she stops moving. And he fucking bolts. He then becomes very scared. And so it's like, again, it's you'll float too. You'll float too. Indeed. You know, yeah, she did. She did for a little while. Little tiny professional. Good to see you, Color. Welcome. But it's just, it's such a powerful moment in the movie. And it showed in that scene the innocence of the monster, the creature, and what the evil that he's capable of doing. He doesn't even know what he's doing, what is evil. He just exists. Because he hasn't been, like I said, he hasn't been taught morality. He doesn't understand. And it's so fucking tragic. You look at the monster's face, you know he didn't mean to kill. He didn't mean to do what he did. He just didn't understand at all. And he fucking takes off. Eventually, we cut back to the Frankenstein residence, and Elizabeth is insisting on seeing Henry before the wedding, which is weird because the groom and the bride are supposed to see each other. But Henry goes to see her, and he's asking her like, "What's wrong? What's going on?" And she's like, I'm worried. Dr. Waldman hasn't been here, and Henry's like, don't worry, he's taking care of it. He's always running late. He's always late. He's always a very busy man. She's like, I know that, but I just have this feeling that I can't shake. He's like, it's just pre-wedding jitters. It's okay. You just have to have the vapors. And she's like, it's not just the vapors. It's more than that. It's more than that. And so, but then suddenly Victor and a number of the other people that are part of the Frankenstein household, they come to the door. And they tell Henry and they tell Elizabeth, we have some people that went to the castle on the board today, checked on Waldman. He's dead. And she's like, I fucking told you it wasn't my vapors. Women's intuition, chat. Women's intuition saved the day. And they're like, oh, shit. And people have been saying that the monster is running across the countryside, terrorizing people. And they're like, holy fucking shit. And so it's like, okay, we got to go and fight. We got to put this fucking thing down. We got to put it down. And he locks Elizabeth in the room. She's like, it's like, your anxiety's getting the best of you, honey. You got the vapors. I'm going to lock you inside your room. And she's like, what? And then when they do that, they hear, it's like, where's the creature? What was the last spot? And they hear this. They hear the monster. And he's like, he's in the house. We got to split up and check every fucking area and shit. And so they go every which way. And we see Elizabeth inside her room and just like kind of sitting there like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. And we see the monster just fucking creeping. Opens up the windows inside the room with her. And she turns around and goes, ah! He goes, he literally goes like I'm gonna fuck you. but they hear her scream. Henry and Victor and the rest of the staff, they come down and they open the door and the monsters escape. Elizabeth's fine. She fainted from shock, Chet. She fainted from horror, from shock, but she seems to be okay. Meanwhile, we cut outside. None of the party goers know what's going on because they're having fucking a good time. They're eating great food, Chet. You know, they're eating Wiener Schnitzel and shit, and you know, strudel and stuff, and drinking beer. It's a nice German wedding, Chet. Nice German wedding. But we see the father, and this guy just has this 1,000-yard stare as he's carrying the lifeless body of his little girl, Chad. Great performance. I don't know this actor's name, but my God, like, I just love that he's just carrying, all these people are just like seeing this, and his children are seeing this, and when you hear some screams and some gas in the background, and it really sounds like they use a lot of fucking extras. Like, I'm like, God damn. Again, that's what I could see. Like, they clearly knew what they had with these Universal monster movies, and they invested more money into this film, and they hired a lot more extras to be a part of it to give it like a grander scale, I think, than even Dracula, which actually doesn't have that many people in it. Actually, it takes place only a couple rooms when you think about it. Like, they're literally, the houses just right next to each other. And he takes her in front of the Burgermeister, and the Burgermeister's, you poor soul, why did you bring this girl to us? Why did you do this? And he's like, she's been murdered by the monster that has traversed across the countryside, is wreaking havoc. And everyone's like, we want justice for the little girl. And the Burgermeister, the Burgermeister's like, okay, we're gonna get justice, but let's have a nice, good old-fashioned mob with pitchforks and torches. And everyone's like, yeah, and that's what created that, Chad. Frankenstein is responsible for creating the quintessential mob of pitchforks and torches, chat, in cinema. And it's like, oh shit, this is where it came from. And so they form a mob. Dr. Henry Frankenstein, he becomes a part of this mob, and he's like, I totally had nothing to do with this. It's like, yes, you did, you son of a bitch. And so, like, we're gonna go, and then he teams up with the Burgermeister, Meisterburger, and the father. And like they march outside the village, Chad, and they go in separate directions. Some people go into the fields, other people go into the near the rivers and lakes, and this one other group goes to the mountains and the hills. And each group goes there, and Henry, he leads the group into the mountains, Chad, where we cut back and forth to the monster as it's, you know, going around, and so you can hear the dog. And this is the dog's barking. It learns to fear dogs too as it's, you know, it's traversing. Eventually that group, the mountain group, they split up into smaller parts. You hear someone scream, "Ah!" in the distance. Henry and co, they go over to the guy, and apparently he's been battered by the fucking monster, fucking eyeball just hanging out. Actually, no, but he got the shit kicked out of him. And they're like, "What's wrong, sir?" He was the monster. The monster. And it's like, which way did it go? Which way did it go? That way. And he's dead. No, he's fine, Chad. But Henry leads them this way. He leads them. But they're all fucking, yeah, we're a mob. We're angry. And we're mad. We're yelling. And Henry goes in one direction. He's like, no, come this way. But everyone just keeps going this one direction as Henry, because he can hear the monster nearby. He hears it. And he starts climbing up. And he's looking for it. But fucking the monster, chat's smart, hiding behind a goddamn rock. And he sees his dad. He's like, fuck you, Dad. I hate you. And he fucking bonks him on the head. And he's like, help me. As this thing just like starts slamming his head in there. And the monster just grabs him and carries him. But some of the mob, they see the monster, and they see the you know, he's dragging him away. And so the monster's dragging the body of Dr. Henry Frankenstein. He spots a windmill, and he goes inside, Chad. He closes the door, like the thing closes on, like he goes in there, knocks over a pillar, it falls down the door, basically securing it. He drags the doctor up to the up this ladder, chat, puts him down. He walks outside as all the villagers, chat, the entire mob starts to surround the windmill, and they're all like, bring us the doctor, let him go, you beast. And the monster's like, and he goes inside, and Henry's recovered. He's like, oh shit. He got knocked the fuck out, but he stands up, and the monster sees him. He's like, and we get this great fucking shot, and I love it, where it's a father versus son thing, chat, where the windmill has activated and the wind is like pushing it, and we see this contraption that's spinning it like through these like multiple slots, and they're like literally like on either side of it. And as the slots like go by, really cool magic direction, where at one point it's Henry and the next point it's the monster going around like that. Like they're one and the same. They're so different, but they're so similar to each other, a father and a son. And eventually fucking Henry tries to bolt down the ladder, but the monster's far faster than him. And it grabs him and just starts beating the shit out of him. And it carries him outside. Shit just carries him outside. And, they're still fucking grappling. Like Henry, one last like burst of energy, starts grappling with the monster. And he starts like choking. And then Frankenstein punches the shit out of him. And then he comes down on him like this, not in a sexual way. But eventually the monster just hits him on the head. Grabs him, and they're just like, no, and he fucking throws Dr. Henry Frankenstein off the windmill, and it's like, oh, what's Frankenstein? But he gets caught by one of the vanes, chat, and he slides off the vane to the ground. The people grab him. He's really fucked up. And he say, take him back to Castle Frankenstein. Take him back. We'll deal with the monster. And so everyone just starts throwing their torches into the windmill and stuff, and just sets the windmill ablaze because it's all made of wood and straw and shit. And, poop, I imagine. A lot of poop in them walls, Chad. That's what they did. They packed the walls with cow dung and pig shit and stuff. And that thing goes up like that. And the monster's like, and he fucking runs out, and the blaze is getting higher. He's like, and like, he's like, doesn't know what to do. He's fucking stuck until some debris falls on him. And we cut to the villagers. This beautiful wide shot. And the villagers going, yeah, we fucking killed him. Yeah, this is great. The monster is dead. And eventually, Chad, we transition to Castle Frankenstein, where the Baron's like, well, my son's back. He's a little derpy. Can't use his words. Doesn't know his ABCs or his 1, 2, 3s. But he shall give me an heir. Him and Elizabeth, I assume. But, let's have a drink, everybody. We'll even waste the good stuff on the pours. Here we go. And he pours, like, some of the nice wine for each of the maids, Chad, some of the servants, and he's like, to the health of my family, to the house of Frankenstein. Ha ha, yeah, hip, hip, yeah. And he drinks it, and we cut. And we get a title card, The End. The End, Chad. It ends with a very drunk Papa Frankenstein. And that, my friends, is Universal's classic 1931 film, Frankenstein, chat, starring Boris Karloff and Colin Clive, Dwight Fry, directed by James Whale, chat. He don't know his ABCs. It was 1, 2, 3, but he can still give me a son. That's what it's gonna be. And look, he became just like the monster, chat. Because the monster didn't know his ABCs or his 1, 2, 3s. Bad Boy, one of my favorite untouchable funny moments of Frankenstein, Henry the Lions. One man crazy, 3 sane people. While Dwight Fry Fritz is standing there with that dopey look. That's true. Alcohol, the true monster. It is technically. Yep. There you go, Chad. Hopefully you enjoyed my review of Frankenstein, and I'll be doing the Wolfman this Friday with Lon Chaney Jr., which I enjoyed. Thank you, Austin. Thank you. No, thank you guys. Hope you've been having a good time with the stream so far. It's been fun. Everyone forgot what you've just seen. Yes! Already sorry I came in late. My nose. Oh, I'm sorry. The Twitch notification system is notoriously terrible. I typically post on my social media when I'm about to stream, usually like an hour beforehand. So, oh yeah, I gotta get my rating. You're right, Lakota. You're right. I would get this as a full price. I think this is better than Dracula. I think it has a much better ending. What is this fucking funny? They all kind of end abrupt, but I do like this. I do like this ending a lot. Like my favorite Universal monster ending. Oh, it's hard. It's probably. I mean, honestly, it might be between Bride of Frankenstein and the Wolfman and the Invisible Man. But this one's much better than Dracula. I think it has a stronger ending. I mean, it's goofy with the bear and like to the house of Frankenstein, But the house is later destroyed. Chad, its name is despised. By the time we get to the third film in the series, where the villagers like, get the fuck out of here. We don't want you here anymore. And Henry's dead, and his father is dead, and that's when you have his son Wolfgang Frankenstein trying to restore the family name with the help of Igor. But I do like this ending just because I think it's a much more climactic finish. That was my problem with Dracula. If I have one big criticism about Dracula, is that it kind of just like Dracula just like, okay, I'm just gonna go to sleep now, and I'm sure everything will be fine. And then Van Helsing just kills him off camera. But here, I like the whole thing of the windmill and the battle between the father and son in The Monster and Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein, him throwing the doctor out of the windmill and him seemingly burning to death. And we know he does not burn to death. By the time we get to Bride, we know that he survived because there was a reservoir underneath the windmill. And he was saved because of that shit. He fell through into the water. And I like the Barons just, they try to end on a happy note where it's like, to the house of Frankenstein. It's like, after all that, you're toasting yourself, really? The arrogance, chat. So, it's a much better ending. I would give it a full price. I mean, the performances of Boris Karloff and Colin Clive and Dwight Fry in particular are very, very good. They're iconic. Everyone knows those performances. The set design is great. The use of shadows and light is great. Just the idea, like, you create this monster, but it doesn't even know what it really is. It has the mind of a child. It has the morality of a very young child. Like, when it kills, it doesn't even intend to kill. It just does it because it just acts out. It would mostly in fear. I really like that. I really, really like that. It's like the monster, the Frankenstein's monster is the most tragic, I think, maybe, with the exception of the Wolfman, the most tragic of the Universal monster movies. And it has a stronger ending than Dracula. So that's why I would give it a full price for me personally, chat. RD, I want your quote from yesterday on a shirt. Dr. Van Helsing, fuck you. You got it. That's what fucking Dracula does. Fuck you, man. Yeah. The villagers were the real monster. Well, I understood why they reacted the way they did. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, the true monster of the movie is, like, it says Frankenstein. I think so many people often, I do it too. When we say Frankenstein, we don't think of the doctor, Henry Frankenstein. We think of the monster Frankenstein. But really, it doesn't have the name Frankenstein. It's just the monster. It's Frankenstein's monster. Like, the true monster is Dr. Henry Frankenstein. His ego, his narcissism, his drive, his obsession in creating something which it completely is out of his hands. I mean, he is the true monster, and his legacy is tarnished. He literally destroys his family and all the sequels. By the time we get to the third film, it's like, yeah, they're done. He's dead. He dies young. His wife dies young, probably because of what he did all those years ago. The true monster. I think the true monster, like the name, is him, of what he does. Fire Blast, welcome to stream. Hope you're doing very well. See, the villagers, I understand why the villagers acted the way they did, because when you see that father coming into town with his dead daughter, explaining what happened, and you're of course you'd be righteously angry, And so I don't blame the villagers for what they did. At the end of the day, the person you blame is Dr. Henry Frankenstein. Yeah. You saw with Chris of saying, it's alive, and he was Dr. Frankenstein. Thank you. The doctor's insane. I like how Dracula should have killed him in Van Helsing. Yeah. No, but Frankenstein's a great movie, chat. I think it's better than Dracula. I really like it a lot. Bride is great. Like, Bride, I mean, I'll do Bride of Frankenstein someday. I'll do a review of that. I'll do a scene by scene breakdown. But I just love the last line, because that's when, like, it's funny because Boris Karloff insisted that he not speak as the creature, but they did give him lines. But he has the most powerful line of one of the most powerful lines of just the Universal monster movies in general, where I think it's the last line said, where he tells Elizabeth and Dr. Henry Frankenstein, "You go, we," and he points to the doctor who's the piece of shit, who is like super evil. He's like, "We stay. We belong dead. We belong dead." It's like, oh my God. Of course he doesn't, because he shows up in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. Or no, he shows up in Son of Frankenstein. They resurrect him again. What do you think about considering reviewing of the Van Helsing? I have, RD. That's on my YouTube channel right now. The one with Hugh Jackman. I've done that scene by scene breakdown just for you. It's on there. Check it out. And you agree with me when I say that I think Howard Ashman had the angry mob for Frankenstein in mind when he wrote Mobs? I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I don't want to assume. Woo. Yeah. Alec, good to see you. Hope you're doing very well. Welcome. No, good to see you guys. But I hope you enjoyed the review. Again, I would give 1931's Frankenstein a full price. So far, the Universal Monster movies that I've reviewed, I would give Dracula a low full price. This is a full price, chat. Friday, I'm going to be doing The Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr., chat, a role that made him incredibly famous, chat. You know, much like his father. Do you have a favorite Dracula movie, Chris? If so, what's my favorite Dracula movie? Oh, man. Specifically Dracula? That's a really good question. I got to think about it. Like, I'm not a big fan of Bram Stoker's Dracula, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. I think a movie is, like, this not very well paced, and there's some really bad acting in it. Keanu Reeves. I saw the Christopher Reeve Dracula, but it's been a long time since I've seen it. It's been a long time. Dracula Untold, of course. Whoa, it's Dracula. Like, I have a number of vampire films I really enjoy. Like, I love The Lost Boys. Like, I unironically love The Lost Boys. I think that's so much fun. I love, oh, God. Jesus Christ. Help me out here, chat. The one directed by Catherine Bigelow. I always forget the name of it. Kathleen, Daybreakers is really good. Daybreakers is excellent. Jesus Christ, I always forget. No, not Detroit. Not that one. Unless there's a vampire in that. Blade, but that's he fights Dracula in the third one. Thank you, Jason, for the 4 biddies. Shit, what the man? I always forget the name of this movie, and I love it so much. I like Interview with Vampire a lot. Tom Cruise does an excellent job. Hold on, chat. Give me a second. I'm gonna get her name. I'm going to type in vampire movie, and I was like, I never remember the name of it. Near Dark. I love Near Dark. Near Dark is so goddamn good, chat. Yeah. Yeah, I really love Near Dark. And I have a recent new addition to one of my favorite vampire films. I'm not going to say what it is, because people might not have seen it yet. Stakeland is great. I love Stakeland. I never saw the sequel. I heard it's not that great, but Stakeland is so good. Huge fan. It's like a post-apocalyptic vampire story. Really love it. Morbius, of course. Near Dark is super underrated. Such an underrated film, chat. Yeah, Shadow the Vampire with William Dafoe. I've seen that, but I have not seen it in a long time. Yeah, the Hammer horror film. Mm-hmm. What's your question, Jason? What do you got for me? What do you got? Yeah, watch Near Dark. It's really good. Like a Western vampire film. Modern day Western vampire film. Which is pretty cool. Lady Dimitrescu. Hell yeah. Oh yeah, she's my recent favorite vampire. Nothing about that. Least favorite vampire movies? I mean, Blade 2 and 3. I mean, some of these are obvious, like the Twilight films, of course. Oh God. Some of these I just forget, like the bad movies. But I know there's some like just iconically bad, infamously bad vampire films. I don't like Blade 2, no. I've never liked Blade 2. What about Cross? I like Cross, but it's been a long time since I've seen it. Don't tell me that He's All That is actually a vampire remake. What would you rate the new Batman Long Halloween films? I was thinking of watching them. I don't want to do that yet because I have not reviewed them. But I like both of them, though. Ever seen Universal Monster? Have you seen every... Oh, no, not everyone. There's a shit ton. There are some people don't even know exist. Like, isn't there, like, the sequel to Dracula, like, Daughter of Dracula? Like, I've never seen any of those. I've only seen 3 of the original Frankenstein films. I guess also Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. I haven't seen, like, Curse of Frankenstein and House of Frankenstein. I haven't seen, like, House of Dracula and all that shit. Like, there's a lot I haven't seen. I've only seen the original Invisible Man. I never saw the sequels. I never saw Invisible Woman. Never seen any of those. Yeah. There are so many. There's a shit ton. Like, I think, I know that, like, the first 3 Frankenstein films are considered to be, like, pretty, like, all really good. I remember watching the third one, like, a long time ago. I really liked it. And it introduces the character of Igor, Chad. Watch Batman vs. Dracula? Someday I'll review that, sure. Oh, Fright Night. Yeah, Fright Night's great. Yeah, I liked the original one and the remake. I actually like the remake quite a bit. I think the remake gets a lot of hate. I thought it was quite fun. I thought it was quite fun, chat. Yeah. I never seen the Visible Woman. Well, apparently that might possibly happen, though. Because a man was such a success, we'll see. But there you go, chat. That was my review for Frankenstein 1931. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to take a quick break, chat, to refill my beverage. In the meantime, please entertain yourselves amongst yourselves, chat. We're going to transition over to some of that Dead Space. Some more spoopy shenanigans are on the way, chat. Entertain yourselves amongst yourselves. I'll be right back. Stick around.